solve for the other 99% of our time when we're spending time with our family. Just what most people would consider the mundane, nothing's going on. That's where we spend most of our life. So if we're trying to design a life that we enjoy, we should design it to where we enjoy that part of it, not the 1%.
Welcome to the Our Family Invest podcast, where we explore what happens when family, purpose, and entrepreneurship align. I'm Mike, a former Maui firefighter who reached financial freedom in just 5 years through real estate investing.
And I'm Caroline, a Maui-based realtor here to educate, empower, and elevate my clients to make smart real estate moves, whether right here at home or through my nationwide network.
Together, we're chasing our full potential as individuals, as a couple, and as a family. We're here to build a life that matters. And each week we share the stories of couples who inspire us to love harder, dream bigger, and grow bolder. So join us and let's learn, share, and grow together. Today we're joined by our good friends, Chase and Amy Ingram, a couple who know how to keep their cool under pressure and remind us that discipline and focus always win. Chase is the quintessential data-driven real estate investor. His conservative, numbers-first approach kept his portfolio thriving even as others folded. Amy parlayed her razor-sharp expertise in erosion and sediment control into Pike Acres Environmental, a company she built from the ground up and then exited on her own terms in under 2 years. Together and with their two adorable little girls, they proved that a steady hand, clear vision, and unwavering purpose can turn well-calculated risks into lasting freedom. All right, you guys, thank you for finally coming on the program. I want to dive into you guys and your story, but first I want to dig in a little bit to the two of you. And I feel like I know Chase very, very well as we are on accountability calls together for the last 4 years or something like that. But Amy, maybe you can tell me what I'm missing with Chase. Like, peel back the onion. Who's the Chase that, you take away that all those accolades and successes and beneath that Southern charm, who's the real Chase Ingram? And then maybe Chase, you can peel back the onion a little bit on Amy too.
Right. I guess under the first few layers, there's a person that has to have things a very specific way, or else he just mentally folds. He has to have it. And that's why he works so hard to do things the way that he wants them done, which, it goes a long way because he works hard to make sure that that's done that way. But yeah, he drives our whole family to make sure we're doing everything the right way, or else I don't know how we would function.
Sometimes I'm strangely particular about the way things, and not regular things like
irregular things.
I don't know.
He's strict on very mundane day-to-day things, which does keep our family in line, but
nothing crazy, just the ordinary things. I'm just sticklers about just making sure we do the things that we're supposed to do.
Right.
That makes sense. This is a crazy example, but like the kids brushing their teeth. Like they got to brush teeth every night. Like there's no exceptions, right? I don't care if we fall asleep. We have to wake them up. Doesn't matter. It's just one of those things.
He has a method, the way that each kid brushes their teeth every night, and it has to be done that way. And if it's not done that way from the beginning, we all start over.
So it's not just that they have to brush their teeth. It's 3.5 seconds per tooth per side. And
yes.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
Maybe not that extreme, but my thing is there's a right and a wrong way to do things. So why don't we just do it the right way? If that makes sense. Why would we do it the wrong way? Let's just do it the way it's supposed to be done.
And that goes for everything.
A lot of things.
Including Amy's teeth.
She can brush her teeth however she wants to brush them. It doesn't bother me a bit.
All right, Chase, who's Amy to you?
So she's the opposite, complete opposite with that. So she's the most go with the flow, doesn't matter. Whatever happens. It's all going to be fine. It's all going to work out. Not strict about any of the turning the lights off, shutting the cabinets when we're done with them. None of that. And I'm the opposite. So I feel like my role a lot of times in our household is just to turn off lights and shut cabinets some days. It's just my role. It's just what I do. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's how it is.
We have a conversation probably every other day because I leave the door to outside open, and we live in the country and there's a lot of bugs, especially at night. So yeah, that's it's like our number one disagreement.
So we did have that, 2 nights ago. So she went outside to feed the cats, went outside, left the door, great weather. All the lights in the house are on. Of course, pitch black dark outside. Open the door, leaves it open, sets the cat food out there, pets the cat for a second, comes back in. There's no less than 60 little bugs on the ceiling, and I can't reach them. And I'm like, well, why don't you just shut the door when we go outside? She's like, well, it's so nice outside. But that's very symbolic of how both of us usually live our day-to-day lives.
It's a great metaphor, for sure.
I feel like a good compromise would be a screen.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Okay, well, before you got to know each other's idiosyncrasies, what was your first date like?
A real date? We hung out as friends a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what our first real. Do you know what our first real date was?
Our first real adventure was when we went with Jacob down to the beach together.
That's true. We went with a group of friends to the beach. But I don't know what our first real. So I
I was in college, so I had my expectations were kind of blunted.
which is great.
Yeah.
So we met. I was actually coaching at a gym, and I was coaching that class. And she actually came in to take the class I was doing. And so we met. She was trying out gyms in the area. This was a second of like 3 or 4 she was going to try out. And so, of course, when she came to my class, she never left. Stayed at that gym. And then over the next couple of months, we started talking, hanging out.
So that was like the 1st of June, and then in August.
August, we went on a trip with friends.
And so when was that moment where you were like, I want to spend the rest of my life with this guy?
Oh, man. It was like the 3rd or 4th time we met, we sat outside and talked about our long-term goals.
That is true.
I know that's surprising.
So, well, we were at such different phases of our lives. So, like, she's 7 years younger. So, I was 28. I've had my own house I bought probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was doing pharmaceutical sales. I was helping a friend of mine at the gym, and she was in college. She was 21 years old in college. And I'm like, we're in 2 different stratospheres of phases, not just the 7 years old, but the actual 7 that it was. And I'm like, let's just figure out if this is even going anywhere at all, if we're even wanting the same thing in life right now. And that was a conversation we had probably way earlier than we should have had it, even before we were actually dating, but just to say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I'm looking for.
Right.
Are we even wanting the same thing?
But neither one of us like to waste time.
That's very insightful. I love that.
Yeah.
So Amy, I'm sure that conversation probably took you a little bit off guard, right?
A little bit. I mean, so you say that, but we had that conversation in probably late June of 2015, and I did not get proposed to until December of 2019.
Okay.
Okay.
But
So we're 4 years,
right.
4.5 years, whatever that is.
So, and I do know that he is slow sometimes at making big decisions. And I found that out pretty early on, but I did have to graduate. I took an extra victory lap in school, moved to Montgomery immediately after, but, I was getting into my career. So our life was slow. We were hiking uphill during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Before we get into the family stuff, I have in my notes here that one time Chase got kicked in the head by a horse and went flying through the air. Can you just elaborate on that story for me? Because I got to hear this.
The story.
No, it's true. It's true. So I was probably maybe 7 or 8, and we grew up on essentially a farm. We've got about 650 acres that we grew up on. Actually, we live right here at that now. We just built the house here. So we grew up with horses and all the outdoorsy stuff. And so I had just gotten a brand new horse. I think it was actually my first own full-size horse of mine. And so so excited. We went like an hour and a half to pick it up. The guy I bought it from was like, oh, he's great with kids. Such a tame horse. It's amazing. Everything's great. So we turn out in the pasture and we get it. And like the next day we go to catch the horse to like put a halter and a lead rope on him, and we're going to saddle him up and ride him. And so he was really hard to catch. And so my dad said, hey, well, I've got the halter and lead rope and a bucket of feed. You just stand like right here behind him, or not behind him. I was like to the side, not behind him, not behind. So like stand on this side, and I'm going to walk up to him. Well, the horse, before I knew it, he had ran up to me, essentially turned around, kicked me in the side of the head, and I just went probably 2 or 3 flips through the pasture.
The scar's still there.
So, and he had horseshoes on. Horseshoes are like the metal
Oh, no.
shoes. And so that's what hit me, like the ones you throw, actually hit me right here behind the ear. Actually, I think it was on this side. So yeah, so my dad picks me up, blood's everywhere. My brother, who is probably 11 or 12 at the time, is on the tractor out in the pasture somewhere else. And so he throws me in the truck, runs to get my brother. We fly to the ER. Everything was fine. No permanent damage, as some may argue. But yeah, it was pretty scary.
Wow.
Did you end up riding that horse or?
No, the next day my dad took it back. He took it back to the guy and said, hey, I need my money back. And I don't think he was very happy. I don't know how the conversation went, but I imagine it did not go well.
Yeah. I got a son in the ER. You're going to need to take your horse back kind of thing.
Yeah. That's quote good with kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever get another horse after that?
I think I did. So we used to rodeo a lot when I was younger, and we kind of phased out of it when we started doing more sports. But probably 10 and under, we did a lot of that. And then I became interested in like football, basketball, a lot of other stuff. And we didn't do it nearly as much. So I think I did, but I don't remember, or no, maybe not.
There were horses.
We always had horses. I just don't know if I had one. Yeah.
I gotcha.
Okay, so Amy, I didn't know that you were cast for American Ninja Warrior College Edition. That's super cool. So
Yes.
must have been kind of insane. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, so I actually found the show, the college edition. It was the first, I don't even know if they're still running it, but Casey Sahaki, he was at Alabama with me. And at the time, he was the Bama Ninja. And we knew each other from high school. And he reached out randomly. We hadn't talked in a couple of years. I mean, he was a good friend back in high school and was like, hey, I was reached out to about this show. And it was, I can't even remember if it was actually on NBC, like typically, but he just asked if I wanted to do it. He was like, we're going to have to train. We're going to go to LA. We're going to shoot. So I signed up, trained for probably 6 months. And then I think we had to submit videos. And then we were in Arizona when I got the call that we were going to be on. So we trained a few more months, flew out to LA. They paid for everything. We get out there and we actually got to run the course once for fun. And someone from the university calls NBC and says, you guys are not allowed to use our students, our likeness or whatever, our logo. So we were I was actually talking to Casey Catanzaro. She does like WWE wrestling now, but she was broadcasting the event and the producer came up to us and told us that we weren't going to get to run. But I know it was sad. It was a fun experience.
Really, really, really hard. Is it really as hard as it looks?
It is pretty difficult, but that's just who I was back then. Like I was doing CrossFit, weightlifting, I have a gymnastics background. And so, I mean, I just picked it up. It was fun. I was a lot more athletic back then.
I'm curious, like, how do you train for something like that? Because like nowadays, I guess there are like
Hardcore.
America Ninja Warrior gyms and stuff like that.
That's what we did. We went to Ninja Warrior gyms.
There was something like that, huh?
Yeah, even back then. Ryan, something with an S, he's pretty big in Ninja Warrior now, but we met him at the Atlanta Ninja Warrior training facility. We went up there a few times. We went to one in Birmingham. It was tough. I mean, a lot of the stuff I was able to pick up easily just because of gymnastics, but the warped wall was my kryptonite.
Really? That's the one that got you, huh?
Yeah, I did eventually do it, but it took many months.
Yeah. All right. So getting back into it, you're a young couple, you're just out of college. Amy, you've got all kinds of letters after your name. And Chase, you're essentially a drug dealer. And then you start flipping houses. Where did that come from? What made you start flipping houses?
Yeah, so I had started probably 2015 or so, just got interested in investing in general. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that, but I just knew I was super frugal with my money. I was making decent money and I didn't really have a lot of expenses. And so I was just saving money. I'm like, there's something I can be doing that's more useful with this than just have it sitting in the bank. And so I went down the whole stock rabbit hole of the Ks and the IRAs and all that kind of stuff for probably a couple years. And for me, it was kind of like a set it and forget it thing is kind of what I kind of came to the conclusion of. The less you do actually in the long term, a lot of times the better with that and just get that exponential growth. So it really, after that, I realized there's got to be something more to this. And so I went down the real estate rabbit hole, bought a few rental properties, and then just ran out of time and ran out of money at that time. I was self-managing everything, didn't want to manage anymore. I didn't really want to have any extra money to throw at rental properties either. But I was finding all my deals off market. And so I was like, well, I'm still finding these deals, but I don't want them. What if I just start selling them? And so that's what I did, started rehabbing them and selling them. And it kind of snowballed into doing rentals at first. And now probably 90% flips over the last probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And you've since made the transition to go full-time into real estate and built an impressive portfolio locally in Montgomery, steady growth, streamlined operation. Tell us about your team and how you're sourcing deals in today's market.
Yeah. So from a team perspective, the team's pretty small. I mainly just have a project manager and one guy that helps me with acquisitions. That's the only full-time people that I have. And so actually the acquisition guy is actually part-time, but he's actually on my team. The project manager, Mikey, he's the only full-time guy that I have. And I like that. I know a lot of people who have bigger teams built and they have this project manager and this person. And a lot of times they're able to do a lot more volume than I am. And that's fine. For me, I like being nimble without the overhead, without the stress, have a little bit bigger margins on deals. And I may not be able to do as many deals, but I feel like it's more streamlined and I'm able to pivot and change directions a lot quicker than if I have 10, 20 people working for me.
So Chase, you were kind of forced into the full-time flipping business, right? Because I know when we first met, you were pharmaceutical sales. And obviously I joked that you weren't actually a drug dealer, but you were really, really good at that. And then the company laid off a huge percentage of their employees, right? And before then, you were poised to easily go in and do your own thing, but you liked having the stability of the W-2 job. And when you got that notification that your job was going to be cut, how did you transition in a mindset from going from, W-2 employee and kind of doing this on the side to like, I'm going to go all in on this? Or was there ever a point where it's like, you know what, I'm still not ready to go all in. I'm going to try and find another job.
So as me and you talked about numerous times before, I'd wanted to do this for a couple of years before then. And I was just always scared to pull the trigger. And I always just said, hey, I know if I go full-time in real estate, I'll be able to overcompensate for what I'm making for my job and make more money and have more flexibility. But for me, always having that security there just kind of kept me hanging on us, the golden handcuffs, like everyone always jokes about. And it really was. I couldn't bring myself to actually make that decision, call my boss and say, hey, I'm leaving. But yeah, when we had layoffs, they laid off 70% of the sales force. And the second I got it, at first it was relief. It was like, oh, great. I've been wanting to do this forever. Now they did it for me, made the decision for me. And then about 10 minutes later, I got a phone call from a guy that I used to work with. And he said, hey, the company I'm at now is hiring. I'm best friends with the manager. The job is yours if you want it. You just have to interview, but you're good. You're going to be fine. You'll get it. She already said she wants to hire you. You just still got to go through the actual formality of it. And I was like, great, easy. I got another job. And so I did the first round of interviews with her like 2 days later. It was great. Go to the next round. And then I realized as long as I have a plan B, I'm never going to go all in on plan A. And that's when I realized, hey, I've got to get off LinkedIn. I've got to quit calling people about, hey, do you know someone that's hiring? And I've just got to stop and say, because that whole, 3 or 4 days of after I was laid off, interviewing for another job, I was treating real estate the same way I had when I had a job. Nothing had changed. And I said, I can always string this out as long as I want or go back, or I can say, hey, I'm right where I wanted to be in the first place. Let's just scratch plan A and it's all plan B from here on out. And so that's kind of the decision I had to make. And so it took me a few days to come to that realization. But after that, I haven't looked back. I actually got a call when we were with you guys in Maui about a month, 3 weeks ago. A guy from another company, essentially the same thing. He got laid off in the same round that I did. He said, hey, I'm at this company. I knew his manager. And they said, hey, it's yours if you want it. And I said, I'm a pass. I'm good. So you still have those opportunities come, but it's hard to. I feel like anytime I entertain those, I take everything away from what I'm doing.
And I think that, that kind of answers my next question that I wanted to ask you, because I was kind of thinking like, now that you've gotten that taste of entrepreneurship full time, right? And all the stresses that come with that a lot of people don't see, right? When you've got that golden handcuffs, like you call it, you've got the security of income coming in. But when you don't, you've got to rely on yourself and you've got to be the hustler, and you don't have days off. You don't have hours off. You don't have minutes off, right? So you have to be that person. The question I was going to ask you was, do you ever regret going full time into real estate, or has it been a blessing for you? Is this lifestyle more fit
worth
with
the struggle?
Yeah.
I don't regret it at all. It's well worth the struggle. The first year I was laid off, we made more money than I've ever made before. And I worked less hours than I've ever worked before. Now, to say the stress level was lower, I don't know about that. It was probably pretty similar. With my job, I was very stressed between like 9 and 5, 9 and 4, because I was doing real estate and pharmaceutical sales at the same time. And so for me, it wasn't a stress of the job that I had wasn't stressful at all, but it was a stress of how can I cram everything into this small window of time for both jobs all at the same time. So that was my main stress of I don't really have enough time to do everything. Now that plays a part of it, but it's just so many more balls being juggled right now. And so it's more of a dull stress, like their stress level on 0 to 10 may have been a 6 or a 7 some days. Now it's a 2, but you're right. There's no minutes off. There's no hours off. So a lot of times it's just a constant 2 versus a 6 or 7 in a 9 to 5 window. It's a 2, sometimes on the weekends, sometimes at night. There's just a lot more stuff going on to be stressed about.
Yeah.
But it's not high stress.
Right. Just
makes
like
sense.
if you leave the door open and the bugs get in.
100%. Like, what if someone did that? How bad would that be?
That would drive me nuts.
I agree. See?
Hey family, real quick. If you'd rather watch your content, head over to Our Family Invests on YouTube. You'll find this episode and all our episodes over there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your takeaways in the comments. Now, back to the show.
But Amy, let's talk about you, because I know a few years ago you're working a W-2 job and you're working a lot of hours, and then you decided to pivot and start your own company. You start crushing it right away. And essentially within 2 years, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you basically sold your company to your competitor, and then you stayed on to work with him.
Yes.
Like, what made you decide to sell as things were because you were working way less hours and making way more money. So what made you decide to sell and get back into almost like a W-2 frame?
So the only reason that is going to work is because I'll have complete flexibility that I currently have. And the competitor sets the pricing, the new pricing that I was charging like half of. And so, he's just able to pay me a salary essentially based on what I'm going to be bringing in for him, and he eliminates competition. So it was it was a win-win on both sides, I would say.
Love that.
Yeah. And it's just not, I'll get to keep the flexibility. I know he's a great businessman.
Cool.
It's going to be a fun journey for sure. Yeah.
And then you don't have the stresses of all that.
Right. I don't have to chase down paid invoices. I don't have to send invoices. I don't have to market. I don't have to do anything like that. So.
Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like the entrepreneur's dream of like to start a business and then sell it and then still get paid from it. I love it. How do you two support each other's growth?
Oh man, we're just such a good team. I mean, the minute one of us needs something, there's never why, it's always just, okay, I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll do this.
She takes the lion's share of stuff with the kids, like during the day. To whereas I have this flexibility to work, go do what I have to do, be on the phone, be on webinars, whatever I've got to do during the day. She usually takes the kids to school. She usually picks them up. Some afternoons she'll go to her mom's house, which is like 20 minutes away, and I'll go hang out and feed the fish and just hang out. And it gives me time in the afternoons if I ever need something that I have essentially full flexibility to get that done. To whereas we're not stressing about, hey, I have a hard deadline. I have to do this, I have to do that. So that's probably one of the biggest ways she's supportive of this is she just kind of takes a lot of the load off of me, even with the housework stuff. When I need it, she just takes it.
That's awesome. So you two are both very successful in what you do. But people look at success in different ways. So I want to know, like, what does success mean to the two of you beyond like the milestones and the metrics and all that?
I was just going to say free time, vacations, birthday parties, being able to focus on things like that and give it more focus than if you were just stressed full time, working, picking up kids at 5:30, trying to fit in a workout, having the freedom to focus on building up your kids, fitness, things like that other people just cannot have time to focus on. That is success, I feel like, for me, for us.
Like when we both had jobs, our kids would be at daycare at 8, and then we pick them up at 5. Now they get to school already supposed to be sometimes 9 o'clock, and they get picked up at 3:15. Now that's still a big gap, but like they have tons of weeks off. We just vacation. We went on a long vacation to whereas we're able to do those things that we couldn't do before. And I was actually telling someone this the other day. If you had told me 5 years ago that I would have had the freedom and flexibility with my family that I have now, I would have taken that 10 times out of 10. Because if you think about, I'd love to do this. I'd love my life to be designed like this. Now there are always challenges, of course, but I will take this all day, every day. Yeah. And it's hard to realize that a lot of times when we're in it, because we still see the stresses of, well, this house is behind on the rehab, or we're over budget here, we're this. But if you look at it from a macro level, 10,000 foot view, this is what most people want. And this is what I've wanted for years when I had a job. This is why I got into real estate, so I could have the freedom and the time like this.
Yeah. And it's hard to always take that 10,000 foot view, right? Like when you're in the grind, sometimes problems look a lot bigger than they actually are, right? So has there ever been any kind of failure or challenge, either in business or in your marriage, where you just weren't sure if it was all going to work out?
I don't know. I'm sure I've felt that way before in the past, but nothing that has stuck.
Not that I could think of. I mean, me and you were talking earlier, there's always, I feel like peaks and valleys of entrepreneurship, to whereas it can be 5 minutes here or there, an hour, a day, a week, a month, to whereas you just feel like, oh man, am I really good at this? Do I really know what I'm doing? And then you snap out of it and you're like, oh, I got this. I'm an expert. This is what I do. But there's always, I feel, peaks and valleys, especially when, I mean, probably in anything, in any relationship and in any business and whatever we do, there's just times where we kind of doubt ourselves. But I think as long as, those are very small moments in time, and, I think that's kind of normal.
Yeah. Through those roller coasters, were there any mindset shifts that needed to happen, to take place for you guys to get to where you are today?
So when I was pregnant with our youngest, I had blood clots that turned into blood clots in my lungs. And it was a really hard time for us, just physically, emotionally. It was hard. And I think that it was a reset for both of us, that life is just so precious. Like, I was lucky to even survive that. But I think it really shifted our focus on what we want to build as a family. It kind of, gave you life is on a clock.
So how do you stay aligned in business and as a couple?
Our goal is to raise our kids the right way, to be able to spend time with our kids, to enjoy our life, and to overall be happy and joyful as a family. And so everything business-wise, kind of the goal is for that. So the times where we're struggling and flipping a house or having a rental property that has a million issues, it all goes back to, hey, here's why we're doing this. So we can vacation with our kids, so we can take trips, so we can be home when they get home from school, so we can take them to school late, so we can do the weekend stuff that we want. I feel like that's kind of our North Star. And it's sometimes you just have to get back and say, here's why we're really doing this. And I think that kind of gets us back into alignment pretty easily.
Yeah, that's so good. Helps you get through those muddled times because they have been such a roller coaster ride, right? What are some non-negotiables that you both have to help you lead with clarity?
For me, it's always, so one thing I always tell our kids, I feel like I can hear myself saying this all the time, is do what we're supposed to do. Do the right thing. If we're not supposed to do this, let's not do that. If we're supposed to do this, let's do this. And that's kind of the thing that I hear myself saying all the time.
Yeah, you say,
unfortunately,
is that right?
Do what we're supposed to do. Do what we're supposed to do. Now, I'm sure that's not a non-negotiable. That's not what we're looking for, but that's just one thing that sticks out in my head of like, if we know what we're supposed to be doing, let's just do it that way. And so that's really all I can think. Do you have anything non-negotiables?
I have little things here and there, like not getting behind on work past a certain day, making sure everything's done, signed.
Yeah.
Housework, not so much.
So, all right, Chase, if somebody's wanting to get into real estate investing and particularly flipping houses, what is some of the first advice that you would give them to get started?
I would be as conservative as you feel like you, especially in today's market. Be as conservative as you can be. Learn how to learn. Find someone that's doing it that you can learn from. Because you can read a million books, listen to all the podcasts, all the blogs and everything. But until you actually buy that first property or go to offer on that first property, it's all new. You can prepare yourself as much as you can. But once you do it, everything changes. There's always going to be issues that happen once you do it. There's always going to be problems. I don't say that in a bad or in a negative way, but that's just how anything is. Anything's going to change once you get in it. So I would find someone that's done it before. And one thing I always think about is, for me, a lot of people get caught up in, hey, I'm going to flip a house. I hear some people say, I want to get in the house flipping because I love designing, or I love choosing paint colors, or I love doing this. And I'm like, not saying it has nothing to do with it, but it's very, very little to do with actually flipping houses, especially with volume. Like people that love design and paint colors and all that, you can do it without that. For me, it's finding the deal. You've got to be able to find good deals. It's relatively easy to find contractors. Now you can weed out the good ones and the bad ones and the price. And it's, selling houses is all about the same, whether you're selling them turnkey to other investors, whether you're listing with realtors. A lot of that's kind of set in stone already price-wise, but it all starts with being able to find good deals, in my opinion. And so that's where I think a lot of people kind of get the cart before the horse when they try to flip houses or even buy rental properties. They think about all the stuff that comes after that. But if you buy a bad deal, none of that matters. It's going to turn out bad. And if you have enough deals, you can do enough volume, in my opinion. I think, Mike, you've heard me say this analogy to a friend of ours before. I like to think about like deal flow as like the water in your pipes in your house, right? So you want to be able to control that water. If you go turn the faucet on when you need water, but it's off at the road, you get nothing, right? You want to be able to control that water flow at the faucet. Deal flow is the same way. You may not need a million deals right now, but you still want to be working on it, because when you need that water, want to be able to turn the faucet on. So many people just cut the water off at the road and say, hey, when I need to brush my teeth, I just don't have water. For me, I like to keep it full and then kind of control the flow of how fast or how slow I want to go with the faucet, but always keep deals coming in. Does that make sense?
You touched on so many good things there, Chase. Like, I love the don't get into flipping because you want to design a house. Like, the best investors I know, as far as that are doing a lot of volume, are not trying to be Chip and Joanna Gaines. They're not trying to make each house different and special and pretty. They're replicating the process, and it's boring, right? But it's the things that work. And we learned that early on, because I wanted to, I went to art school. I wanted to make beautiful looking places and all that. But we learned very quickly that really cool fan that we had to order from Wayfair that was like $700 or whatever it was in an Airbnb, it breaks and you can't pick that up on the shelf. It's a 3-month shipping to get here from Sweden, right? It's like, we need stuff that is easily replaceable. We know what flooring we put in our units is all the same. We know the paint color on the wall. We know all these things. And once we started to kind of systematize a lot of that, it became such an easier process and such a more profitable process.
A more predictable pattern. I mean, it just helps your profit margins for sure.
So like, we just finished a house flip. It was a little bit of a step up from what we usually do in a higher price range. And the realtor's like, hey, we need a really nice light in the breakfast nook and the dining room. And I'm like, that's not what we here's the lights we usually use. She said, what can we do nicer? And I said, go pick them out. Tell me what we're getting. That's not I don't care. I just want it. Is it going to sell good? Or other people going to like it? I don't really care. As long as other people like it and it looks good. Does that make sense?
Sure. It's by the application too, right? Like, things that work for us in short-term rentals don't necessarily translate into a flip, or vice versa, right? Like, there's a lot of flip stuff that's not going to work for a short-term rental. So
yeah. How has family shaped how you approach business?
For me, it helps me keep the main thing kind of the main thing, and just know it's very easy to get discouraged in real estate, especially these days when, rates are high, stuff's not moving, deals are harder to find. A lot of people we know are it's just a tough stretch for a lot of people, even really, really good investors. Just to know we're not doing this to hit a certain number in the bank account. We're not doing this to hit a certain number of deals a year. And I put that pressure on myself, which is, it's all created by me. But the goal is to be able to do this with the family and have this kind of family time and have this lifestyle. And so I wouldn't say that changes a lot with business, but it helps me not be as stressed and not worry about other superficial things that don't really matter. If that makes sense. Keeps me a little bit more grounded.
What do you hope your kids learn from watching you live and work?
I'm going to say two things that are going to contradict each other. I'm going to kind of explain the difference. Hard work is a good thing. You need to work hard, but also work smart. And you don't have to work 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day to do that, but you still have to work hard to get things. And that may be, hey, I work hard for 10 years to whereas I can get to a point where my business can run like this. But you still have to put the work in at some form or fashion at some point. You can't just snap your fingers and say, hey, I know nothing about this. I want to make $1 million in a year. You've got to put the work in somewhere, the front end, during, somewhere to do that. And so just the work ethic and working smart or not smarter. What was that?
Oh man, honestly, like, I just would want to appreciate like the little things. I'm very on that.
You were, when you guys were out here last month, we kept commenting like, Amy is taking those girls everywhere. Like, every day you were in another corner of the island, and it was like, this is not like down the road. You're like an hour and a half drive, and we're going to go for another hour and a half drive, and then we're going to go up country, and we're going to see a volcano, and then we're going to go down to the beach. And then it was like, wow, it was amazing to see, because what you did in a month with those girls was more than we've sadly probably done in a year, and
I love that.
but it is that, like, being present in the moment, right? And I think that there's something very, very important to that. And I love how the two of you are contradictory in enough ways, but also so similar
And
in
very
so many
unified.
ways, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll start wrapping it up here, but I also know, because I looked this up yesterday, Amy, you got bit by a water moccasin, and I didn't know what a water moccasin was, but it's also called a cottonmouth or a pit viper. And pit viper, that name scares the crap out of me, right? So like, what was that? Was that another leave the door open and it crawled in the house kind of thing? Or
The door was open. No, I was a young kid, like 4 or 5, just at my grandmother's house picking flowers, and she lives on a lake, and it was a juvenile one. So they I guess like over defend themselves, and they overproduce venom. So it turned into a hairy situation really quickly. And thankfully, the rural hospital we went to had antivenom there. But yeah, it was like almost an amputate situation just a few hours in. I guess within a few hours, I had the antivenom. But even after that, it was because I was so young, and it was a juvenile snake. Yeah, that's the dangerous mix. But
holy smokes. That's
Where did it
crazy.
bite you?
a foot. Yep. I was bent over picking flowers, and it came up behind me from under her porch. They actually the next day busted up the porch, and there was a nest of babies under there.
Wow. Is that common?
I mean, I'm sure where we're sitting within 500 feet, there's multiple. I mean, there's somewhere.
Really?
Yeah. But they usually keep to themselves.
Sure.
So
You make us sound like the most redneck people that
big mom.
kicked in the head by a horse and bitten by a snake.
Is there anything else we should know about?
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's funny because
That's scary.
when we bought our first house in Arizona, we're like, they got scorpions out there and rattlesnakes. Like in Hawaii, we have centipedes and they hurt if you're bit by them, but nothing out here is really going to kill you unless you're in the water with a
Or
shark.
you're allergic.
Or yeah. But we don't have bears. We don't have rattlesnakes. We don't have pit vipers, right? Like Arizona scared us a lot when we're like scorpions and rattlesnakes. Like, what do we do? So this last house that we bought, we spent as much money as possible on like Terminex or whatever pest control comes out there and like, give us everything. Just douse this place. Like,
Oh yeah, we get doused.
Yeah.
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 yeah. So I feel you there. And especially if you're going to leave the doors open, like I would freak out if those things were coming
The
in my
bugs
house.
want fresh air. They get hot.
I got West Nile out down there. You got tons of mosquitoes. I know
in our
that.
house, not just out there.
On that happy note, who are 3 people, books, or places that inspire you?
You go first.
I'm gonna say we're in Maui with you guys. I felt very inspired, and it's not. Yes, you got the scenery, and you've got, of course, the beautiful views and the weather and all that. But a lot of it was the community. The community that you guys have there is amazing, and so that's very inspiring. There's a book called The Last Arrow. It's by Erwin McManus, a pastor. But it's basically just the gist of the book is like, just don't leave any arrows in the quiver. Use everything that you have. Don't hold back. Just kind of essentially go for everything. And that's one thing I've always struggled with is I'm super conservative and very slow to react. And a lot of times that's good. And a lot of times that can slow you down. And so that's one thing I've actually read it, I think 3 times now within the last year or so, just because I need that ingrained in me at least a little bit more.
Honestly, the writer of Outlive, Peter Attia, I've learned a lot from him, just how to live a well-rounded, healthy lifestyle. And then also the Southern comedian Leanne Morgan. She's hilarious.
Love it.
Find a time.
I'm going to throw a quote in there. And actually, it's a quote I just read the other day. And it's something that I've read a handful of times ever since. And I have it saved in my phone. And I know you didn't ask for a quote, but I'm going to give you one. So it's, what a blessing it is to be tired in the pursuit of a challenge of your own choosing. I'd never heard that before. And any time that I feel stressed or feel tired from work, this is what I wanted to create. And this is the path that I wanted to pursue and the challenge that I wanted. And so it's a blessing to be tired, choosing what I want to be tired of, if that makes sense.
That is such a great reminder, because I think we can get stuck in the day-to-day trenches and forget the blessing it is to be stuck in those trenches instead of doing something else and missing the opportunities and having the nights and weekends together as a family. So I like that one.
We like to end the shows with saying we learn, we share, we grow. What is something that you've learned recently that kind of just gave you pause and helped you to see life a little differently?
I heard it's another quote, but it's what it's solve for Tuesday afternoon is the quote. And it's basically says, hey, if we're looking at our life like a math equation, like we don't want to solve for the 99, we don't want to solve for the 1% of the time, like the trips, the vacations, the cars, the whatever else. Solve for the other 99% of our time where we're spending time with our family, just what most people would consider the mundane, nothing's going on. That's where we spend most of our life. So if we're trying to design a life that we enjoy, we should design it to where we enjoy that part of it, not the 1%. So it's basically solve for Tuesday afternoon was the quote.
That.
Good quotes.
I don't think I have anything to add because we talked about that one together recently.
Yeah.
That's so good.
The causes really are where life is created, I would say.
You guys are fantastic. Love you both. Thank you so much for spending time with us, for finally coming on the podcast. And if our audience wants to connect with either of you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Probably Instagram. I'm not super active, but I'm there. Chase.Ingram is mine.
And mine is just a.r.ingram.
Well, you guys are awesome. Thanks again for joining us and have an amazing day.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thanks for being part of the family today. If you want a closer look at our journey through real life, business, and all the wild adventures, follow us on Instagram at Our Family Invest. And for free resources to help you on your own path, head to ourfamilyinvest.com.
If you like this episode, send it to a friend. And if you're feeling extra generous, drop us a quick review. It really helps us grow this community. Thank you so much for being part of our family today. We really, truly appreciate you.